Welcome to Now Let's Talk, the podcast with Vanessa Corwin and Kathleen Kahn, where we speak with our guests about the joys and challenges of life in today's world. Hello, I'm Vanessa Corwin.
And I'm Kathleen Kahn.
There's a lot of information out there about healthy eating, which can be intimidating and confusing. Today's guests will give us advice that fits into real life because eating well should not be complicated. With us today are Nicole Roach, lead dietitian and certified diabetic educator, and Molly O'Driscoll, registered dietitian, both at New York City's Lenox Hill Hospital. Welcome, ladies. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
So let's just dive right in. We hear the phrase healthy eating. So what does that really mean?
I feel like it's kind of hard to say what exactly a healthy diet is because I think that means something different to everybody. And I think that there's not just one quote unquote healthy diet that fits all, right? It depends on your medical histories. Different disease states will require different things, and different things will be healthy for someone with diabetes compared to someone on dialysis. And we also want to keep in mind people's culture and their background and their preferences. So I feel like there's a lot of things that encompass that healthy diet that we're aiming for. And it's not just, again, that one size fits all.
And I think if we do want to dive into what is healthy eating, we could definitely talk about it from a general perspective, where we're just talking about the general, like, say, healthy average American. We can certainly dive into what does a healthy diet look like for that person.
Well, that sounds good.
So we hear a lot about the benefits of plant-based diet. So can you explain why it's good for us?
Yeah, there's actually so many benefits of plant-based eating. Plant-based foods, they have benefits for our heart, on our cholesterol, lots of proven benefits for people with diabetes in regards to blood sugar control. A lot of times plant-based foods are not as processed. There's more fresh, more natural.
A plant-based eating pattern is one that really focuses on foods primarily from plants, right? It's in the name. So this includes not only fruits and vegetables, but also things like nuts and seeds, whole grains. So think of brown rice, whole wheat bread, quinoa and such. And then legumes and beans, all that sort of good stuff. And so it doesn't necessarily mean it can mean that you're completely plant-based, so somebody who's vegan would not consume any animal products, but it also can be more liberal depending on what you want. Some people, will consume eggs. Some people go for a more vegetarian style. They'll eat everything but meat, so they'll have fish, eggs, milk, and some people just abstain from meat. So it can be various things. It just focuses on your diet being heavily of plants.
So how about organic food? What is it and how does it differ from non-organic food?
Well, organic food essentially means that food has been grown or farmed without certain like pesticides or potentially been impacted by genetically modified organisms, when you think of like cow farming, antibiotics or hormones are often used to kind of help, fatten up the cows and get more meat. So when you think of organic farming, it's kind of free from all those artificial food additives. And they may use more natural productions. So like
Like what?
for example, maybe they use no tilling, or they kind of use crop rotation as well to kind of naturally help grow food without those chemicals or pesticides. And usually those pesticides are to help with like pest control or to help like them grow bigger and better. When we genetically modify organisms, it's maybe to make them more drought resistant. So sometimes, I don't necessarily think GMOs are always bad, right? They can be really great. Parts of the world use now like genetically modified rice to be drought resistant, and so that really helps those communities get food. So I think it can be beneficial and used in the right way. And Nicole, please jump in.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Molly. I don't necessarily always think that buying organic food is going to be the end all be all. Sometimes I think that people learn about organic foods and they kind of think that they're superfoods and that's what's going to help cure them of certain diseases or prevent certain diseases. And while there's definitely benefits to them, for example, in regards to produce, sometimes organic produce, they will just give you more antioxidants just from being exposed to less chemicals, which is great. But again, sometimes these products are a little bit more costly, which is not always feasible for someone. But again, it doesn't mean that someone who has to eat something that's canned or something that's not organic, it doesn't mean that their choices are poor choices. Again, it might just be what fits into their diet and into their budget. So again, not always the optimal choice for other reasons.
So ladies, what I'm getting from you is there's no clear benefit one way or the other of organic versus non-organic. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, definitely. And I think certainly it also depends on how people feel and their budget and stuff. I think seconding Nicole, if you can just get your fruits and vegetables, either way, I think that's going to be wonderful for your health.
Molly, we are often told to avoid processed foods. Then I read that there are different degrees of processed foods. Can you explain that to the listening audience?
When we think of unprocessed foods, that would be foods in their natural state that really haven't undergone any changes. So think about, blueberries, just picked from the stem, right? That would be really unprocessed in its natural state. But you take blueberry jam, and right, that blueberry is taken from its natural state. It has maybe added sugar in it. Potentially, if it's not a all natural one, it has preservatives in it. Sometimes they can even throw in dyes to make it more visually appealing and colorful. So then the more things you add and change it, it becomes more processed. So, think of blueberries in their raw state, unprocessed, even if you cook them down, or bake them, they would or wash them and freeze them, that would be minimally processing them. Sometimes we buy frozen berries, which aren't bad, because often they're picked at their peak and just frozen, and they're still nutritionally really valuable. But then once you continue to break them down, say turn them into jam. Sorry, this is the example that I'm just using. And you add more to it can take away and strip nutrients from it, and also can add other things like say you add tons of added sugar and such. So that would be kind of something that then becomes very processed.
Well, are there any processed foods, since we're surrounded by them when we go shopping, are there any that are good for us or not as bad?
According to the USDA, a processed food is any raw agricultural commodity that has gone through any sort of processing to alter it from its natural state. So getting to your most processed item would be something we would call ultra processed.
And I think both unprocessed, I guess all of it, minimally processed and ultra processed, can be all a part of a healthy diet. Especially depends on like the person, but some people rely on ultra processed foods for their only means of nutrition. So I think depending on your situation, all different levels can be part of a healthy diet. And why maybe sometimes we focus on minimally processed to unprocessed foods would because, right, we don't have all of those maybe additives. You're taking that broccoli or blueberry, and even if it's just cut up or frozen or canned, it's still nutritionally all there. Fresh broccoli that's steamed has lots of fiber. If you break it down and you make it ultra processed and maybe put it in a frozen meal with lots of additives, it could potentially lose some of its value.
Right.
And like
Now-
Molly was saying, unfortunately, there are some people who are totally dependent on these more processed items. Again, they do tend to be cheaper, but there are ways that we can work around to kind of help fit those into a diet, as Molly was touching on. So, for example, canned food is considered to be processed. It can be on the shelf for a really long period of time because there is extra salt added to it, there's extra preservatives added. When we buy something in a can, we could always look for cans that are lower in salt. So that can kind of help decrease the salt content, making it a healthier option. If we buy something that's in a can, maybe for example, black beans, we could then dump it into a pasta strainer and rinse it with water to kind of help rinse off some of the salt, some of the additives. You can't get rid of all of it. It'll depend on specifically what you're rinsing and how porous that item is. But I think I read with like black beans, you could get rid of almost like 30 to 40% of the extra salt in it, which is a good amount.
When we go shopping in the supermarket, obviously we should be label readers. We should look at the ingredients and everything. So what should we look out for that's good, and what should we watch out for that's bad?
Yeah, there's a lot on the label for sure. I personally get a lot of questions asked about the percentages that are on the right side of the food label. So I always like to touch upon that. That speaks to the percent daily value, and that's based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. So when you're looking at that, it's giving you how much percent of that item is coming from what you're eating and how that fits into 2,000 calories. And I like to look in that area or teach my patients and my clients to look over there because I feel like it's kind of a foolproof method. What might be considered quote unquote good or bad, that will definitely vary. While as the percent daily value, that's kind of a standard rule across the board. So anytime we see something with a percent daily value that's 20 or more, we would consider that item to be high in that nutrient. And then anything with a percent daily value of 5 or less is considered low. And then you can use those numbers to figure out what is important to you. So for example, maybe you're looking for an item that's low in salt. That item should have 5% or less. Whereas fiber would be something we would want to have a higher percent daily value. We want to make sure we're getting in enough fiber. So if we saw bread that said the percent daily value was 20% or more, we could be confident that that's a good choice to make. So that's where I like to start. What about you, Molly? Where's your favorite part on the food label to look at?
One thing when you're looking at a label is, always looking at the serving size, really whatever you need. If you're watching your calorie intake, oh, this has this many calories, that's helpful to know. I'm somebody who likes to eat 3 meals a day. I need like about 2,000 calories. So, I like my meals to be like around 500 or more, and then I have snacks in between. So, right, that kind of works for me. So you can kind of then look at calories and then again, all those other nutrients based on what you need. Like if you're somebody with high blood pressure, like Nicole was talking about, you'd probably want to be looking at sodium.
And then back to what you were saying about watching the serving size. I mean, I could, if I buy potato chips, let's say, I could easily eat the whole bag. But when you look at the serving size, it says like 2 potato chips, which is like totally unrealistic. You know what I mean? So, having this knowledge, it's really good, but you have to really at least I have to police myself on this.
For sure. We all
it's those nutrition facts can really be a good tool, and also to helping you create balanced snacks, but also enjoy what you like. You can definitely still enjoy what you love all the time and be mindful of serving sizes and still nourish your body.
Right.
I have been known, because I love ice cream, to buy a pint of Haagen-Dazs, take 2 scoops, and then melt it down in the water in the sink so I don't eat it. So I find I have to force myself to make it unedible after I get my little fix. One of the things that Vanessa and I do a lot, and I don't really shop a lot, but this is going to help me to shop, but we go out a lot to eat in restaurants. And unless you go to a vegan restaurant or someplace that they say we specialize in plant-based foods, what's the alternative?
Yeah, I feel like there's so many ways to kind of tackle dining out and trying to dine out in a healthy way. Just being vocal and making swaps. A lot of restaurants are pretty agreeable to work with you, but you have to kind of make that first move. The menu might not say, if there's a burger on the menu and it's a beef burger, that you're able to swap it out for a turkey burger or like a chicken burger, or if the sandwich that you're looking at is a fried chicken sandwich, it might not clearly state that you can change that to grilled chicken. But lots of places, if you kind of take that step to ask them, they're more than willing to swap things out. So trying to make swaps where you can grilled, steamed, baked, boiled, usually can feel confident that that's going to be a more healthy choice than something that says, I don't know, like creamy, crispy, cheesy, fried, battered, right? The good stuff.
Yummy. Yeah.
But of course, you still want to enjoy those things, right? Because sometimes when we're dining out, it's a special occasion, or we just want to enjoy the weekend, right? So on those times when you want maybe the creamy, crispy, cheesy, battered item, you could always share with whoever you're dining with. So there's definitely, some good things to do while dining out to still enjoy the food, but kind of honor your body and try to be a little bit more healthier.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Nicole said. You definitely want to enjoy yourself, right? Everything in moderation. It's nutrition is not always about just the one meal you're having. It's about the long run and your whole diet. They always say like a good rule of thumb is like making 1/4 to a half of your plate veggies. So getting a salad or something. And then like always, you can always make like a fourth of your plate whole grains as well, or any type of starch and carb. And that way you're kind of hitting all of those food groups, and really just fueling yourself. Having that balanced meal is going to fuel you and make you feel your best.
Yeah,
So,
and sometimes too, planning ahead is really helpful. I mean, I know before I go out to eat, I study the menu. I want to know all the options, just because I love food. I want to know what they have. But for someone who's looking to kind of eat healthy, sometimes studying the menu ahead of time and knowing the options available to you, it just makes things easier when you're ordering in the restaurant. You might feel a little less pressure to have to quickly find that healthy option. And I've even had some clients I work with tell me that they like to, if they're dining out with friends or with family, if they're really dead set on trying to order that healthy option at the restaurant, they'll order their meal first. That way, once their friends and family are ordering, they don't become tempted to maybe swap for that less healthy option. So again, it just kind of depends on what you're in the mood for, what your goal out of that meal is, because like Molly was saying, we want to enjoy the food.
now, speaking of eating out
And
and
enjoying.
celebrating, what about alcohol? Now, we hear a lot of conflicting information about alcohol. And for those of us who enjoy a nice glass of wine with our meal, what are your thoughts on that?
And is it true that red wine is better than white wine?
I think it still stands true.
What's in the grapes? Resveratrol?
I think so, yeah. I think the reason why we consider wine to be a healthy alcoholic drink is that wine is made from grapes, and grapes are high in antioxidants. So one of them is resveratrol. They're really high in antioxidants or polyphenols, which is kind of a bigger word. But basically what that is it's a plant chemical that's really good for us, and they can act as antioxidants, which are really good for just helping our cells fight disease. And so those benefits in the red wine from the grapes can be beneficial to us. Well, I know there's studies that say that, yeah, like drinking red wine in moderation can be really healthy because of these nutritional compounds in it. And definitely, and Nicole, please jump in. I know it goes back and forth like
Yeah.
moderation could be like, one drink a day, I believe is in moderation.
It's for women, it's technically one drink a day can fit into a healthy diet, and then for men, they say that two drinks per day can fit into a healthy diet and would be considered, moderation. And that 1 to 2 drinks per day, that will depend on the type of alcohol. So if we're talking about beer, the serving size is 12 ounces. If we're talking about our red wine, like we are, the serving size is 5 ounces. And then if we're talking about liquor, the serving size is 1.5 ounce. So just like with the food label, serving size definitely matters. I think like Molly's saying, moderation is usually key to everything. I feel like sometimes people want like this magic answer from dietitians, and our favorite word is moderation. But specifically with alcohol, I really feel like it depends on your cardiologist if you're looking for these heart benefits from it. So always just talking to your provider and getting their opinion on those sorts of things. And then if you have someone who's interested in weight loss, alcohol can sometimes give you what we call empty calories, meaning it's just really giving calories without any vitamins, any minerals, not too many other benefits.
So how about white wine? Same story?
So I don't believe that the white wine has the resveratrol, which is specifically in the red wine. I believe that's why there's that red color of the wine. I do believe it has to do with coming from the red grapes. Molly, is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I think what normally happens with red wine is that, yeah, it has like that skin fermented with it in the red grapes. That maybe the white wine may not have that additional skin in the fermentation. I know as dietitians, we like skins and stuff because there's so much fiber and nutrients in them. So I think in that capacity, yes, like the red wine may have like a little bit more nutrients in it, but I'm pretty sure the nutritional content of both are like very, very similar.
Yeah, and definitely too, the serving size is still the same.
So now what about when we're cooking at home? Um, what are some good cooking methods that we should use, and what are some examples of some healthy swaps that we might want to make? Like, uh, let's say we want potatoes, but we're like, no, we don't want to eat potatoes. Is
But
there some?
is it true that a baked potato is good?
A baked potato, yeah, a baked potato, has lots of potassium in it. It has vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, even fiber when you keep on the skin. So of course, yeah, it falls into that starch kind of category, right? It's a carbohydrate. So like I said, carbohydrates are super important. A part of a healthy diet, part of a balanced meal, or they're our brain's preferred fuel source. So definitely potatoes are good. And I guess a tip I would have for if you want to cook, if you want to bake potato tonight or roasted potatoes, again, making it balanced. So add a protein, add a lean source of protein, and add like, vegetables, salad, maybe some roasted or steamed broccoli. I guess this is where it varies on what your preferences are. Definitely, if you're going to cook it, you could steam it, you could add some heart healthy unsaturated oils to it, like cooking it with olive oil. So that's kind of in a nutshell what you could do with a potato and how to balance that meal out. A good tip is always to meal plan. Again, takes out the stress and the confusion at the grocery store when you have a game plan going in.
Yeah, and I think too when you're planning and like you're thinking about what do I want to eat Monday to Friday, whatever the case is. For me personally, I find it easier to have like a couple staple items that I'm shopping for. So rather than having a really different and unique meal every single night during the week, I'll have a couple of things that I use for several different meals, whether it be the protein is the same, it's going to be a staple of chicken for the week, and I'm just preparing it differently. Or maybe I want to use my vegetables coming from broccoli and spinach, and that's going to be my staple. So sometimes the less items you have, the less overwhelming it can feel. So that could be a good thing to think about too when you're making your shopping list.
How about pasta? Is that a good carb for us, or should we be only eating like whole wheat pasta?
Carbs in general, whether we're talking about bread or pasta or rice, I think they just get a bad name for whatever reason. I feel like, I don't know, does it go back to the 90s when everyone wanted to be on Atkins and wanted to be carb free? But like Molly said, they give you so much good fuel, not only for your brain, but for your body. If we're not getting in enough carbohydrates and we're working out, we might have less efficient workouts. So we definitely want to get our carbs in. Um, Ideally choosing, a whole wheat product, so like whole wheat pasta over a plain white pasta. It would be more beneficial. It does have more fiber in it, so that would be a good swap to make. Doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have the white pasta or like white bread, white rice. The recommendation is if you're somebody without diabetes, at least half of the time during the week, trying to make your carbohydrates coming from those grains whole wheat. So, if you're someone who is willing to eat whole wheat bread, but maybe not whole wheat pasta, maybe your half of your whole wheat can come from the bread and not necessarily the pasta. And if that's the case too, maybe just trying to be extra mindful of our portion size. I think a lot of times too, carbs get a bad name because we tend to load them up on the plate.
They say about like 45 to 65% of our total daily calories should come from carbohydrates. So think about that, like about half or a little bit more. So they are an important and integral part of a healthy diet.
Yeah, and even so, I think sometimes people forget that there's carbs in fruit. So all fruits are carbs.
Vegetables, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even starchy veggies, right?
True.
Beans. So many things count as carbs that we
Milk.
probably don't realize. Yeah.
So carbs are kind of maligned a lot. Yeah, but they are, as you had just said, they're really good for you, and we should not ignore them. So some people like get really obsessed with eating healthy, right? So how can we just sort of get a clear mind about that? Just set ourselves, in a realistic mode.
I mean, I think a lot of the obsession with, eating healthy comes from the weight loss culture and that idea that, we want to lose weight and that we were taught that, being thin is so good for us. I think that if we kind of remove that from the idea of eating healthy, that we might not feel as obsessed with it.
Yeah, I agree as well. You can definitely be healthy at all different sizes. And I think it's just really important to kind of, like Nicole said, have that perspective. Another thing is too is just listening to your body and what you want as well, mindfully eating, listening to your hunger cues, right? That's always super important as well. Yeah, and if you want to make changes to your diet, you don't have to do it overnight. Like Nicole said, it's about
Yeah.
that longevity, small steps and goals. You don't need to change it overnight and then, beat yourself down about not maybe then
Yes.
obtaining those goals, right? So it's all about creating small, sustainable goals to make those long sustaining habits as well.
So yeah, this is great. This is great advice and great information, ladies. Last but not least, can you suggest some resources that our listeners can go to for more information and maybe some recipe ideas, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I personally love to refer people to the American Heart Association website and the American Diabetes Association website. Whether you have heart disease or have diabetes, I just think that these websites are great sources for nutrition information and recipes, just because both of those specific diets, they have different aspects of just like a generally healthy diet. So I think that those are great places to look. And specifically for heart health, I also really enjoy the Mrs. Dash website. So Mrs. Dash is a salt-free seasoning. We use it here in the hospital in lieu of giving salt to our patients. So I just always thought, oh, it was a seasoning. But when I explored and I went on the website, I found that they actually have different recipes available that they pair with the seasonings that they sell. So I thought that that was nice. It's kind of like showing that if you use this seasoning, we recommend it with chicken or fish. So I really like those three sources. What about you, Molly? Do you have any other go-tos?
Yeah, I agree. I think those are wonderful. Those are on my list as well. I think they have really easily digestible articles for people to read. If you don't have um lots of prior nutrition education, I think it's very easy to understand. I also like eatright.org. So that is by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, where we get our credentials from. So I think they're also a great resource. They take you through all the food groups and have recipes and blogs on their website. My Plate is by the USDA. That's always a great one too. When you're
My
trying to
plate's
think of a
great.
yeah, I think My Plate is we talk about it all the time. I think that's a really good representation of how to create balanced diets. And then I also like the Harvard, the nutrition source. They have their own My Plate, which is like the healthy eating plate. And I also think they have lots of great articles about different nutrition topics that are really helpful.
Molly, did you know that MyPlate, when we were talking about myplate.gov, they actually have an app that you can download for your phone from the App Store?
Oh, I did not know that.
It's so fun. It's called Start Simple with MyPlate. And when you download it, it's not necessarily as much about like portion sizes and what you would find on the website. It's more about setting simple goals for yourself. So I really like that one too. You should check it out.
That's cool. I'll have to look at that. Yes, that's another
Yeah.
great source.
Yeah.
And I think just to add in, those are all great sources. Like tips too is when you are on the internet searching for nutrition
Oh, yeah.
information, just making sure you are reading from credible sources. Something like
100%.
the USDA is great. All those organizations we talked about are all highly accredited organizations that publish research.
I agree. And just like Molly was saying, to be mindful, lots of other websites out there can be such great tools. Usually anything that ends in .gov, .edu, .org, when you see that, we can be very confident that this is a safe, trusted source.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Yes, that's great advice because as we all know, there's a lot of misinformation out there on the web, and so it's good to really go to those trusted sources.
Well, you guys have certainly given us some wonderful information.
Yes.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you, so please visit our website at nowletstalkthepodcast.com and send us your comments and questions. We'll see you next time.